Hi there. My name's Mary, and I'm the Director of Youth Services at the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. And I'm here today to continue reading Ribsy by Beverly Cleary. The book was published in 1964 by Harper Collins. Well, when we left Ribsy, he'd been taken in by the Dingley family, and they were giving him a bath because he had fleas. Well, he has escaped the bathtub, but now the family is trying to lure him out from under the bed. Get some hamburger, ordered Mr. Dingley. Maybe we can coax him out. Mrs. Dingley left the room and returned with a lamb chop, which she handed to her husband. We're out of hamburger, she explained. The girls ate it all last night. Mr. Dingley held the chop out to Ribsy. Nice doggy, he coaxed. Come and get it. Ribsy did not care for the lamb chop. In all the excitement, he had lost his appetite. Besides, he was cold. Look, he's shivering, reported Luann. We'll have to move the bed, said her father. Get ready, everybody, to catch him in case he makes a dash for it. Then he pulled the bed away from the wall. Ribsy did not appear. He moved with the bed, and this time he crawled to the center. He did not intend to come out while all those people were there. I'll get the dust mop, said Mrs. Dingley. The dust mop did it. Ribsy did not like being poked with that fuzzy thing, so he backed away. I've got him! Zibby was triumphant as she grabbed Ribsy by the hind legs. Come on, boy, said Mr. Dingley gently, as he took hold of Ribsy's hind legs and dragged him out from under the bed. Ribsy, who now had fluffs of dust added to the bubbles, struggled and tried to dig the claws of his front feet into the slippery floor. But Mr. Dingley was too strong for him. The man lifted him and carried him back to the bathroom, where he dropped him, still struggling, into the tub. This time Ribsy knew he was trapped. He knew he could not scramble out of the slippery tub when he was hemmed in by all these people. He simply stood, dripping and drooping, and waited for whatever was to come next. 8 small hands and 2 large hands began to try to rinse him. But they soon discovered that bubble bath was not easy to rinse away. The more they rubbed, the more Ribsy foamed. I'm sorry, old boy, said Mr. Dingley. This is no way to treat a nice dog like you. At the sound of the sympathetic voice, Ribsy turned a sad face to Mr. Dingley. We didn't mean to be unkind, said the man. He took a plastic cup and began to pour water over Ribsy. That seemed to work better than trying to rub the bubble bath off. So the girls ran and got cups and doused Ribsy thoroughly. Still, he was not free of bubbles. I know, the shower. Mr. Dingley pulled the plug in the tub, drew the shower curtain, reached inside, turned on the shower. Ribsy was startled to find water falling down on him inside a house. This had often happened out of doors, but never before in a house. It frightened him. Whimpering, he tried to get out, first at one end of the curtain, then the other, and then in the middle where his claws slashed the plastic. "Daddy, don't let him out!" screamed Zibby. Mr. Dingley finally had to duck under the shower curtain and hold Ribsy. "That's all right, boy," he soothed as his shirt became soaked. "We'll have you fixed in no time." Ribsy was reassured and stopped struggling. With that much bubble bath, he didn't leave a ring around the tub, and so we don't have to scrub it, observed Zibby when the ordeal was over and her father had gone off to change into dry clothes. "That's nice." Mrs. Dingley sounded tired. Ribsy shook himself as hard as he could, spraying the girls and the bathroom with drops that smelled of violets. He was soon surrounded by towels and rubbing hands. He did not mind being dried. Henry Huggins had always dried him after a bath, but he did object to smelling. Smelling like violets. He felt that if he could manage to get free of those hands to get out of the bathroom, he could run away from the smell. "He's still pretty damp," said Mrs. Dingley when they grew tired of rubbing Ribsy. Now that the family had a wet dog on its hands, no one knew quite what to do with him. "I wish we'd left him in the parking lot where we found him." "I always knew it would be fun to have a dog," said Luann wistfully. "We'd better not let him catch cold," said Zibby. "We might not get a reward for him." "I'll turn up the furnace," said Mr. Dingley, appearing in a dry shirt. "Maybe we can coax him to stand over the heat." But Ribsy, persuaded to the furnace outlet, did not care to stand over the heat. He did not like breathing hot, violet-scented air. He pulled away from Zibby, who was trying to hold him. Seeing no way to escape from the house, he jumped up on a comfortable chair, as was his habit in the Hugginses' home, when no one was looking, and tried to curl up into the smallest possible space. Mrs. Dingley, who was a very calm woman, was not that calm. "Don't let him lie in that good chair when he's all wet," she said, and her husband pulled the unwilling dog to the floor. "Maybe we could use Mother's hair dryer," suggested Zibby. "We could dry one piece of him at a time, starting with his head." "He would never stand still for that," answered her father. "My, it's warm in here," said Mrs. Dingley. "There must be some way to dry a dog without roasting the whole family." Ribsy tried to jump on the couch and was pulled to the floor. "I know," Mrs. Dingley had an inspiration. "I once read in that pet column in the paper that one way to dry a dog is to take him for a ride in a car with the heater turned on. It seemed like a silly idea at the time, but it might work. It also might get all the children and the dog out of the house for a while, so she could enjoy a little peace and quiet. She was beginning to feel she needed it. The girls all agreed that this sounded like fun. "Can we, Daddy? Please, can we?" they begged. Mr. Dingley was amused. "I guess it wouldn't hurt to give it a try," he conceded. "And I can dry my hair at the same time. Get your jackets on." Mrs. Dingley reached for a mop to start swabbing up the bathroom. And so Ribsy, along with 4 girls and George, was bundled into the station wagon. The windows were closed and the heater turned on. Mr. Dingley drove aimlessly around the neighborhood while the girls petted and consoled the damp dog. As Ribsy began to dry, the windows of the station wagon began to steam. Mr. Dingley wiped the windshield with the back of his hand so that he could see to drive, and the girls polished their windows with their sleeves. Ribsy tried to curl up on the seat and ignored the whole situation as best he could, but Zibby boosted him to his feet. "You won't dry all over if you lie down," she explained. Gradually, Ribsy, whose hair was medium long, except on his ears, where it was short, and on his tail, where it was long, dried. He felt more comfortable, and the mean, hungry flea no longer bothered him. It had been driven off by the bath, or perhaps it was too stunned by its experiences to bite. In some ways, things were better for Ribsy, but in other ways, they were worse. He still smelled the violets, except that no violets ever smelled that strong. The perfume of violets is sweet and gentle. Ribsy reeked. Luann buried her face in his hair. She inhaled. "You smell pretty, just like flowers." "He must be the cleanest dog in the USA," remarked Zibby. Ribsy's sensitive nose did not care at all for the pretty smell, which was not only unpleasant to him, but made him uneasy. Smelling strongly of violets, as he did, he could not smell anything else. A dog depends on his nose to tell him a lot of things, the most important of which is the presence of danger. "He certainly smells strong," said Mr. Dingley, "like a whole field of violets." He turned the car toward home, and as he drove, he began to sing, "Sweet violets, sweeter than all the roses." The girls were delighted. They had never heard this song before. "Sweet violets," they joined in, "sweeter than all the roses." It was a good song for singing at the top of their voices, and that was the way the 4 girls and their father sang. "Sweet violets, sweeter than all the roses, covered all over my head to toes, covered all over with sweet violets." When they finished the verse, they started all over again. Ribsy did not enjoy the singing. It was just noise to him. He flopped down on the seat and tried to ignore the girls, but he could not. He was too warm. He was surrounded by the unwanted smell, and the girls were too noisy for his sensitive ears. The singers were carried away by the song as they drove into the garage. "Sweet violets," they were singing as loud as they could, while they tumbled out of the station wagon. "Sweeter than all the roses." No one remembered to hang on to Ribsy, who knew an opportunity when he saw one. He leaped from the station wagon, slipped past the girls, burst out of the garage into the damp and the dusk, where he began running as fast as he could run. Down the driveway and across the road and across some woodsy vacant lots toward the highway. Behind him, the singing stopped. "He got away!" shrieked Zibby. "Catch him! Catch him!" screamed the younger girls. "Hey, come back here!" called Mr. Dingley. Ribsy paid no attention. His feet were on asphalt now, and he was going fast, putting as much distance as he could between himself and all those girls and George. The voices grew faint in the distance, but Ribsy kept on running. After a while, he felt safe from the girls, but still he ran, trying to outrun the smell of violets. This he could not do, and when at last he could run no more, he stopped and rolled in the dirt and gravel in a ditch at the edge of the highway to try to free himself from the hated smell. He rolled and rubbed and wriggled on his back with his 4 feet in the air, but nothing helped. The smell clung no matter what he did. Panting, exhausted, and hungry, Ribsy lay in the ditch and wondered what to do next. Chapter 3, Ribsy and Mrs. Frawley. "We've gone back to the parking lot twice to look for Ribsy," said Mr. Huggins late in the afternoon on the Saturday Ribsy had disappeared. "We've called the Humane Society 3 times to see if someone has brought him in. Now the only thing left to do is advertise in the newspaper." Mrs. Huggins picked up a pencil and paper from the desk. "What shall we say?" she asked. "Lost, the best dog in the whole world," said Henry, who was looking out the window, hoping to see Ribsy finding his own way home. "Henry," said his mother, "it won't do any good to keep staring out the window." "In books, dogs find their way home," said Henry. "They travel miles and miles, but they always come home." "But the lost and found notices are full of ads for dogs that apparently can't," said Mr. Huggins. "And when I was a boy, I knew some people who lost their dog, and 6 years later, they found it living a mile away." "Ribsy's smarter than that," said Henry, "and he likes it here. The dog you're talking about probably ran away." "To get back to the ad," said Mrs. Huggins, "how are we going to describe Ribsy?" "Medium-sized, patchy spots, and a long tail," said Mr. Huggins. "The trouble with Ribsy is that so many dogs look like him." "Not to me, they don't," said Henry. "Then think of something different about Ribsy," suggested Mrs. Huggins. "Something that would help identify him. Remember, he isn't wearing his collar." Henry thought the matter over. He did not want to believe his dog was just like any old dog. There had to be something different about him. What was different about Ribsy, aside from his being the friendliest, most companionable dog in the world? Ribsy hung around the schoolyard. So did every other dog that had a boy in school. He followed the mailman but so did lots of other dogs. Sometimes the Klickitat Street mailman had so many dogs following him, he would call 'em right or call 'em left whenever he crossed the street. Ribsy could sit up and beg, and he could shake hands, but so could... "Hey, I got it!" Henry exclaimed suddenly. "He's left-handed. I mean left-pawed. He always shakes hands with his left paw." So, we're going to leave the story right here today, and next time we'll find out what happens when they advertise that Ribsy is missing. As we continue reading Ribsy by Beverly Cleary. It was published in 1964 by Harper Collins. And again, I'm Mary from the Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and we're enjoying reading with you every day. And so we hope you'll be back next time as we continue Ribsy. Until then, bye-bye.